There is something happening to you right now, not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, on April 4th and 5th, two of the most powerful forces in our solar system are doing something they have not done together in nearly 2 centuries. Saturn and Neptune are meeting in the earliest degrees of Aries, the sign of identity, of new beginnings, of the self that chooses to be born. And whether you understand astrology or not, whether you believe in any of this or not, your soul already knows, because you felt it before you ever found this video. That restlessness, that quiet unraveling, that was not random. That was this. There is a feeling that has been visiting you lately that is difficult to put into words, and yet it follows you everywhere. You catch your reflection in a mirror, or you scroll through old photographs, or you sit in a room surrounded by everything you have built, and something inside you goes very quiet and very still. Not because you are sad, not because something is wrong, but because the person looking back at you feels like someone you used to know, someone you have slowly, almost imperceptibly, been growing out of. And the strange part is, you cannot remember exactly when it began. It shows up in the smallest moments. Someone calls you by your name and for a split second it sounds unfamiliar. Like a word repeated so many times it loses its meaning. You respond to a question about what you want, what you believe, on what matters to you. And you pause in a way you never used to pause. The answers that once came easily no longer feel entirely true. The opinions you once held with certainty now feel borrowed. The version of yourself you have been presenting to the world. The dependable one, the strong one, the one who always knows what to do, feels increasingly like a costume rather than a skin. You may have quietly wondered if something is wrong with you, if you are becoming disconnected, unstable, or lost. And the answer is no. You are not lost. You are being found. There is a profound difference between those two things, and understanding that difference is one of the most important things you will ever do for yourself. What you are experiencing is not confusion, but it is the first stage of a complete energetic identity dissolution. And it is being orchestrated by one of the rarest celestial alignments in modern human history. Saturn, the planet that governs your structure, your discipline, your sense of self in the physical world, and Neptune, the planet that governs your spiritual truth, your illusions, and the deeper reality beneath all appearances. These two forces are meeting right now in Aries, the sign that rules the self, the sign that rules the face you show the world, the sign that rules the answer to the most fundamental question a soul can ask: who am I? The last time these two planets aligned in this sign, the world looked completely different. The structures that defined people, the roles they played, the identities they inherited, but the selves they were told to become, were in the process of being broken open and rebuilt. And that is exactly what is happening to you right now. Not to the world in some abstract, distant sense. To you, in your body, in your thoughts, in the quiet spaces between one version of yourself and whatever is coming next. The identity you have been living inside was not entirely yours to begin with. Parts of it were given to you by people who meant well, but could only teach you what they themselves had been taught. Parts of it were built as armor, constructed carefully and unconsciously around old wounds that needed protection at the time. Parts of it were shaped by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being too much or never quite enough. And for a long time, that constructed self served you. It kept you safe. And it helped you function. It gave you a place to stand in a world that demanded you be something definable. But Saturn and Neptune in Aries are not interested in what kept you safe. They are interested in what is true. And the truth is that the real you, the one beneath the roles, beneath the armor, beneath every story you have ever been told about who you are supposed to be, has been waiting with extraordinary patience for exactly this moment. You do not recognize yourself lately because the self you are becoming has no reference point in your past. It has never existed before. And that is not something to mourn. That is something to receive with reverence. You have been noticing something lately that you have not quite allowed yourself to say out loud. The life you worked so hard to build, the relationships you maintained, the routines you committed to, the goals you pursued with genuine dedication. Something about it no longer feels the way it used to feel. Not all of it. Maybe just pieces. Maybe a significant portion. But there is a quiet, persistent, almost unbearable sense that the shape of your current life was designed for someone you are no longer sure you are. And the more you try to ignore that feeling, the louder it becomes. It shows up at the dinner table, in the middle of an ordinary conversation, when you realize you're nodding along, but something deep inside you has gone completely silent. It shows up at work, when you complete a task you have completed 100 times before and feel nothing, not satisfaction, not pride, not even the mild comfort of routine. It shows up in your closest relationships, when you look at someone who loves you and feel a strange, guilty distance that you cannot explain and did not choose. You are still there. You are still present. But something essential has quietly stepped back, as though it is waiting for permission to tell you the truth. You may have tried to push through it. You may have told yourself that everyone feels this way sometimes, that gratitude is the answer, that you simply need to try harder, or want less, or appreciate more. And there is nothing wrong with gratitude, but gratitude was never meant to be a silencer. It was never meant to be the thing you use to press down the voice inside you that is saying, "This is not it. This is not the full expression of who you came here to be." What you are feeling is not ingratitude. It is not selfishness. It is not a sign that you have made irreversible mistakes or that the life in front of you is beyond repair. What you are feeling is the energetic misalignment that happens when the soul begins to outgrow the container it has been living inside. And right now, Saturn and Neptune together in Aries are making that misalignment impossible to continue ignoring. Saturn governs the structures of your life, the commitments, the roles, the carefully maintained external world. Neptune dissolves what is no longer spiritually true. And when these two forces meet in the sign of identity and new beginnings, they do not ask for your permission. They simply begin the work. The relationships that feel hollow right now are not necessarily broken, but they may be built on a version of you that is in the process of being outgrown. The career or purpose that feels suffocating may not be wrong for everyone. It may simply be wrong for who you are becoming. The routine that once gave you comfort may now feel like a cage because the soul that designed it needed safety above all else, and the soul that inhabits you today needs something far more profound than safety. It needs truth. It needs alignment. It needs a life that reflects the real you, not the constructed one. This is deeply uncomfortable. That discomfort is not a signal to retreat or to force things back to the way they were. It is a signal that the architecture of your life is being reviewed at the most fundamental level. Saturn is the architect. Neptune is the one who shows you which walls were never load-bearing to begin with. And Aries is the energy that says, when you see what needs to change, you will have the courage to change it. The life you built was never meant to be your final destination. It was meant to be the ground you stood on long enough to discover what you were truly capable of building next. That next chapter does not look like anything you have lived before. And that is precisely why it is calling to you now with a force that no amount of distraction can fully silence. What no longer fits was never meant to last forever. It was meant to bring you here. There is a kind of tiredness you have been carrying lately that has nothing to do with how many hours you slept last night. You wake up after a full night of rest, and within moments, before the day has even truly begun, there is already a heaviness sitting somewhere behind your eyes, somewhere in the center of your chest, somewhere in the space between what you are and what you are being asked to continue pretending to be. It is not depression exactly. It is not illness. It is something quieter than both of those things, and in some ways more disorienting, because you cannot point to a single clear reason for it. You simply feel worn, deeply, persistently, inexplicably worn. It follows you through your day in ways that are easy to dismiss but impossible to fully escape. You reach for coffee or food or distraction and find that none of it quite touches the tiredness the way it used to. You sit down to do something that once energized you and discover that the energy simply is not there, or that it arrives late and leaves early, as though something inside you is rationing what it is left very carefully. Conversations that used to feel effortless now require something from you that takes time to recover. Noise that never used to bother you now feels like pressure against something tender and raw. You are not lazy. You are not unmotivated. You are not becoming someone who no longer cares. You are exhausted at a level that has nothing to do with the physical body and everything to do with the energetic one. Because here is what most people are never told about spiritual transformation. It is some of the most demanding work a human being can do, and it happens largely without your conscious participation. While you are going about your ordinary days, managing your responsibilities, maintaining your relationships, and trying to function normally in a world that does not pause for inner revolutions, something else entirely is happening beneath the surface. An excavation, a dismantling, a slow and thorough unbuilding of every layer of identity that was never authentically yours to begin with. And that process consumes an enormous amount of energy. Not the kind you can replenish with sleep, or food, or rest. The kind that is consumed by the soul itself as it does the sacred work of becoming. Saturn and Neptune in Aries are the architects of this process right now, and they are working at the deepest possible level. Saturn is reviewing every structure inside you, every belief about who you are, every role you have accepted without question, every boundary you drew around yourself to define where you ended and the world began. And Neptune is dissolving everything in that review that does not reflect your spiritual truth. This is not a gentle process. It is thorough. It is precise. And it requires something from you that no one else can give and nothing external can replace. It requires your energy. The very life force that you would normally spend on maintaining the old version of yourself is now being redirected toward the construction of someone entirely new. This is why you feel so tired. You are not doing nothing. You are doing the most profound thing a human soul can do in a single lifetime. You are releasing an identity that took years to build layer by careful layer, wound by wound, expectation by inherited expectation. And you are doing it not because you chose it consciously, but because something in you recognized that the moment had finally arrived. The moment when the cost of staying the same became greater than the fear of becoming someone unfamiliar. The exhaustion you feel is not weakness. It is the physical echo of an inner world in the middle of its most significant renovation. Your body is trying to tell you what your mind may not yet have the language for. It is asking you to slow down, not because you are failing, but because the work being done inside you right now deserves the same reverence you would give to any sacred process. It deserves space. It deserves stillness. It deserves your gentleness. Rest is not retreat. In this season, rest is participation. Every time you honor the tiredness instead of fighting it, you are cooperating with the most important transformation of your life. You are not falling behind. You are being rebuilt from the inside out. And what is being built deserves every ounce of energy it is asking for. You have noticed something shifting in the way you relate to the world around you lately. The invitations that once excited you now arrive, and something inside you hesitates in a way it never used to. The gatherings, the conversations, the obligations that fill a calendar and signal to the outside world that you are engaged and present and connected. You look at them and feel something that is not quite reluctance, but is not quite willingness either. It is something in between. A quiet pulling away, a gentle but persistent gravitational force, drawing you not outward toward noise and company and stimulation, but inward, toward silence, toward stillness, toward the unfamiliar but strangely compelling territory of your own interior world. It shows up in the way you linger a little longer in the moments before the day fully begins. That brief, sacred window before the noise of the world rushes in, when everything is still and something inside you breathes differently. It shows up in the way you find yourself drawn to open spaces, to water, to early mornings and late evenings when the world is quieter and the air feels different, charged with something you cannot name but immediately recognize. It shows up in the way certain conversations now feel like interruptions of something important, as though somewhere just beneath the surface of your ordinary awareness, a transmission is coming through, and the noise of daily life keeps cutting across the signal before you can fully receive it. You may have questioned this impulse. The world tends to treat withdrawal as a symptom of something wrong, as isolation, as antisocial behavior, as a sign that something needs to be fixed or medicated or pushed through. And so you may have fought the pull toward solitude, forced yourself back into the stream of social obligation, told yourself that connection is healthy and withdrawal is not. But what you are experiencing right now is not the withdrawal of someone who is shutting down. It is the withdrawal of someone who is tuning in. And there is a profound and sacred difference between those two things. When Saturn and Neptune align in the sign of Aries, one of the most powerful things they ask of you is to go inward before you go outward. Saturn, in its wisdom, knows that you cannot build anything lasting on a foundation you have never examined. And Neptune, in its spiritual depth, knows that the truest version of you is not found in the reflection of other people's eyes. It is found in the silence where no one else's voice can reach. Together, in the fire of Aries, they are creating inside you a kind of sacred pressure, a gravitational pull toward the one place where the answers you have been searching for in every external direction have been quietly waiting all along. The interior, the self, the still and knowing place at the very center of who you are. The people and environments that are draining you right now are not necessarily bad. They are simply vibrating at a frequency that no longer matches the one you are moving toward. Your energy field is in the middle of a recalibration, a fundamental shift in what it resonates with and what it repels. And during a recalibration of this magnitude, the soul instinctively seeks environments that support the process rather than interrupt it. Silence supports it. Nature supports it. Stillness supports it. The company of those rare individuals who do not need you to perform or explain or justify your current state of becoming. That supports it too. What is rising from within you in those quiet moments is not emptiness. It is information. It is the voice of the self that has been waiting for the noise to die down long enough to speak clearly. Every time you honor the pull toward solitude rather than apologizing for it, you are giving that voice the conditions it needs to be heard, and what it is preparing to tell you about who you are, about what you truly need, about the direction your life is being called to move in, is something that no amount of external conversation could ever deliver. The silence is not empty, it is full of everything you came here to know, and it has been waiting with extraordinary patience for you to finally be still enough to listen. There is something new beginning to stir inside you. It is subtle enough that you may have almost missed it, tucked beneath the exhaustion, beneath the uncertainty, beneath the strange and disorienting feeling of no longer quite recognizing the person you have been. But it is there. You can feel it in the moments when the noise falls away and something underneath goes very still and very clear. A quiet. Not the quiet of emptiness or defeat, but the quiet of something that has finally stopped needing to argue with itself. A stillness that does not feel like absence. It feels like arrival. It shows up unexpectedly, in the middle of ordinary moments. You are standing in the kitchen, or walking somewhere alone, or lying in the dark just before sleep comes, and without warning, without logic, may without any external reason for it. Something inside you simply knows. Not everything, not the full picture, not the specific details of what comes next or how the pieces will arrange themselves into a life that finally feels like yours. But something essential, something that sits below the level of thought and cannot be argued out of you and does not require anyone else's validation to remain standing. A knowing, quiet, unshakable, and entirely your own. You may have dismissed it the first few times it arrived. The mind, trained for years to defer to doubt, to logic, to the opinions of others, tends to treat certainty that arrives without evidence as something suspect, something to be questioned before it is trusted. But notice what happens when you try to argue this particular knowing away. Notice how it does not defend itself. How it does not raise its voice, does not become smaller under the pressure of your skepticism. It simply remains, patient and still and completely unmoved, because it is not coming from the part of you that was built by fear. It is coming from the part of you that was never touched by fear to begin with. This is what Saturn and Neptune in Aries ultimately deliver. Beneath all the dissolution, beneath all the disorientation, beneath all the exhaustion and the withdrawal, and the profound unrecognizability of your own reflection, they deliver this, a self that is no longer entirely constructed from borrowed beliefs, inherited wounds, and carefully maintained illusions. A self that has been stripped back far enough to reveal something real, something original, or something that belonged to you long before the world began its work of telling you who to be. Saturn provides the structure for that true self to stand on. Neptune illuminates it with a spiritual clarity that no amount of fear or conditioning can permanently obscure. And Aries, the sign of the pioneer, the warrior, the soul who chose to arrive first, gives it the courage to exist without apology. The fear that has governed so many of your decisions for so long is beginning to lose its grip, not all at once, not in a single dramatic moment of liberation that announces itself with certainty and fanfare, but slowly, in the way that dawn replaces darkness, not through force, but through the simple, inevitable persistence of light. You will notice it in the decisions that suddenly feel clearer than they have in years, but in the boundaries that rise in you naturally, without the guilt that used to accompany them, in the relationships where you find yourself speaking more honestly, asking for what you actually need, offering what you genuinely have rather than performing what you think is expected, in the quiet moments where you sit with yourself and feel, for the first time in a very long time, that the company is enough. What is arriving in you right now is not a new you. It is the original you, the one that existed before the world layered its expectations over your nature like sediment over something luminous. Saturn and Neptune in Aries are not creating someone unfamiliar. They are uncovering someone ancient, someone who chose this lifetime, this moment, this exact configuration of stars and planets and circumstances, because they knew, at a level far deeper than the conscious mind can access, that this was the moment they would finally be ready to live as themselves, fully, honestly, without the weight of everything they were never meant to carry. You are not at the end of something. You are at the beginning of the truest version of your life. And the quiet certainty rising inside you right now is not wishful thinking. It is not the mind offering you comfort in a difficult season. It is the soul recognizing itself. Finally, after everything, recognizing itself. And what comes after recognition is something the old version of you could never have imagined. Not because it is beyond your reach, but because it was always only waiting for you to become real enough to receive it.